Welcome to the Digital Rights Africa podcast, where we talk about everything data protection and privacy, cybersecurity, child online protection, intellectual property rights, and data governance issues across the continent of Africa. Hello, my name is Tiki Akwete. I'm a lawyer by profession with specialization in IT and telecom law. I have worked for close to 15 years in the area of law and technology across Africa. I spent a significant part of my career working for the government of Ghana under a project known as the eGhana, where my role was supposed to create an enabling legal environment for Ghana's ICT development. Subsequently, the government asked me to develop or facilitate the setting up of the Data Protection Commission, which was also one of the laws that I have facilitated its enactment. And so I went on to become the first executive director of the Data Protection Commission of Ghana, and I left this position in 2017, went back to private practice, where I'm now a senior partner at Tiki Akwete & Co. And eventually we decided on communicating with some mentors and friends to set up the Africa Digital Rights Hub, which I'm the founder and the executive director of. The Africa Digital Rights Hub is a not-for-profit think tank that was set up to facilitate research, advocacy, and capacity building on digital rights issues across the continent of Africa. We focus on 5 thematic areas that have been carefully chosen based on the attention that we think these areas need on the continent. These areas include data protection and privacy-related issues. It includes cybersecurity, child online protection, intellectual property rights as pertaining to the development and use of technologies on the continent of Africa, as well as data governance issues, which are beginning to pick up, on the continent. The continent of Africa has been going through significant development over the last 2 decades, and we know the role that technology has played in this development. A lot of countries on the continent are actually seeing technology as a way of leapfrogging their economic development. If you look at sectors like the mobile money industry, we look at how mobile technologies have even been adopted on the continent, you would see that it has far exceeded, how these technologies have been implemented in the developed world. And this all sinks to one issue, that when it comes to technologies, we're actually embracing them at a fast and an accelerating pace. And in all of these, it involves people. It involves collection of people's information. It involves use of that information. It involves people innovating in the space. And so the idea of digital rights is essentially to say that extend the protections that they have in the physical world into the digital space once they might move to that space and they start interacting in there. And so that is really why digital rights is extremely important to us, because we're continuing to see the growing development and use of technologies across the continent, and we are seeing a gap when it comes to the fundamental rights of our citizens, being respected on these platforms. As an NGO in this space, The biggest challenge that we face in the digital rights space has been about awareness, awareness, awareness. And awareness cuts across three key sectors, if I should put it that way. You want to look at industry, where they need to have the right capacity, they need to understand the issues, because a lot of them are put in the charge of obligations in protecting citizens when it comes to these technologies. We also have the government agencies that play a critical role in formulating the right policies for the ecosystem and developing the right laws that will enable our citizens get protected. And then you have the third leg of stakeholders, that are the citizens, who need to be protected, but beyond that, they need to sometimes, where there are even laws in place, enforce these laws. And what is really common among all these three stakeholders is that there's lack of awareness, right? So we have countries that are adopting laws because maybe a donor has required them to have that law in place, but not necessarily the expertise that is needed to develop the law that will suit their peculiar environment or country or culture or values that exist in that country. We are also seeing industry players in this space that are saddled with laws, which sometimes NGOs like ourselves have proposed and pushed for, and they have to implement the laws. However, they do not have the requisite capacity. We also have situations where we have citizens whose rights are being violated, and they know that there is something wrong with whatever has happened to them in the digital space. Their rights have been violated, but they do not know what to do or where to turn to. And so the essence of this podcast is to really speak to all these key stakeholders, i.e. government and policymakers. We want to speak to industry in terms of capacity. We also want to speak to individuals in terms of what should they be doing out there. And for that reason, we've really divided this podcast into various segments where you will see us having dialogues with people with expertise in the space, with a bit for them to share the experience and expertise around these areas. We're going to have educational components where we also bring people to come and teach particular things to people that really need that knowledge in the sector. We're going to have what I'm particularly excited about, which is the fireside chat sessions, which is more engaging with the ordinary people about their interaction with the digital ecosystem and how, you know, they are finding, how they are addressing the challenges that they face, and also for them to share with other people what challenges they are facing in this space. So that is really the reason for this podcast. Because we have a broad spectrum of stakeholders, we have various content that is going to appeal to a broad number of people in that space. We have government agencies that can come in and think and get knowledge around laws and policies that will be good. We also have industry players that can come in and share their experiences with other industry players and stakeholders. And remember, in this space, based on our experience as ADRH, capacity building has been one of the key issues that has been lacking among all the stakeholders. And when you look at Africa, we really do not have that many expertise. Let me give you an example. Take an area like data protection and privacy. Currently, Europe is implementing its GDPR, and research has said that calls for thousands and thousands of data protection experts and practitioners to really support the implementation of that law. African countries all over have data protection laws. At least we have about 10 that are quite active with data protection laws. But I do not believe that even on the continent of Africa, we can find probably even 5,000 data protection experts that can really support that. So a platform like this is really bringing that expertise to the doorstep of as many people as possible so that we can share in their experiences, at the least cost possible. Because also in this space, expertise is very expensive, and a lot of us, especially when you look at the young budding technology companies that are coming up that need to innovate, a lot of them do not have the requisite resources that are required to support them when it comes to digital rights protection. So we're hoping that a platform like this will be able to provide them at the basic minimum with the basic knowledge that is required in this area, and to equip them and help them, prepare them to move on and develop and grow better and recognize some of these issues.